Roll, breakfast ready. I made the eggs just the way you like them. Hey, look!
It is the year 2000, 3 years after the release of the original game, and 1 year after the release of The Misadventures of Tron Bonne. 3D gaming was here to stay, though that didn't mean experimentation was dead. The same year we saw Deus Ex, Hitman Codename 47, Perfect Dark, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and Thief 2. 3D game development was in full swing and improving each year. Amidst all of this, Mega Man Legends 2 came out. The first game caught glimpses of future game design trends right before they were established, and the following spin-off showed leaps of improvement in its action segments. I spent more time bringing up the context of the original game's release last video, so if you're interested in that, go look up my Mega Man Legends 1 review. This time, we're here to see if Mega Man Legends 2 can live up to the standards as a typical second game in a series by Capcom, because in most of their biggest franchises, it's the second game when they start firing on all cylinders. Like Mega Man 1 and Mega Man 2, X1 and X2, Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, as well as Devil May Cry 1 and
Devil May Cry 2.
Okay, maybe not that one. Today, we'll see if the same is true between the first Mega Man Legends and Mega Man Legends 2.
Let's go! I'll get changed, then get the engine started. Can you clean up the dishes for me? Thanks!
Mega Man Legends 2 follows the continued adventures of Mega Man and Roll after the first game, this time going after Roll's grandfather as he got lost in a storm surrounding the Forbidden Island where adventurers frequently go missing, hoping that this would lead to the Mother Lode. In the midst of a storm and an attack, Mega Man awakens ancient people from before modern civilization, which all ties back to his own past that led to the plan to exterminate all carbons from the last game. This also brings us to Yuna, who looks like Hatsune Miku. So I guess there's a trend of things in Mega Man Legends foreshadowing things right before they started existing, I guess. Now Mega Man has to find the keys scattered across the lands before the pirates can get them, even though nobody knows what they're for or how they operate. It made a bit more sense when it was giant refractors that typically go for a lot of money in the first game, but it's fine, I guess. The first thing that really stands out in Mega Man Legends 2 is that the presentation has received a gigantic upgrade. The cutscenes are a lot better directed, and they handle a larger cast actively moving across the scenes a lot better than the first game. The opening scenes are all very well made, and where the first game tried to limit the amount of characters shown during any of the key scenes, Legends 2 has a very high amount of active players and a surprisingly large amount of space that they can move through, especially for a PlayStation 1 title.
Alright then, let's have some fun with Mega Man! Long time no see, Mega Man. I had a feeling I might run into you here.
You're looking as good as ever. Well, as good as you can, considering how that good-for-nothing blonde treats you.
What you mean?
When I ran into Miss Blondie, she told me all sorts of things. Like how she's glad she doesn't have to go out on digs with you. Do you think that's fair? She gets to relax while you run around getting shot at. Don't you think that's a little strange?
The second thing that stands out is that the game controls a lot better, and the complexity and variety of enemies has been upgraded to reflect this. It's clear the developers knew exactly what the issues were with the first game, and they did what they could to improve on it without alienating those that enjoyed the previous output. Tron Bonne's action segments were an upgrade over Legends already, but this is another one over that, despite staying true to the core gameplay, for the most part anyway. Loading times have improved a lot since the first game, and the game in general runs a lot smoother. Though I did watch some footage of the game running on original hardware, and it did have some slowdown issues there that emulation seems to completely fix. Speaking of emulating and issues, the problem that I had emulating the first game where the voices wouldn't load in immediately, skipping the first word or so of characters talking, didn't happen in this game. Looking around online, I didn't find anyone having this kind of issue for Legends 2 in general, while several had it for the first, so no worries there. Mega Man Legends 2 no longer plays out on a single island. Instead, you have multiple smaller islands that you can fly to with the Flutter. Most of these areas come with their own town, theme, and dungeons. You have your main and secondary dungeons on the islands. The secondary dungeons are optional and mainly get you extra money and junk items that you can combine to make sub-weapons with. The main dungeons are all story-critical dungeons you explore that tend to have bosses and are overall more well-designed than the side ones, which feels about as important as they are to the story. For the most part.
Oh. Hey, give an old man a break, will you? I think I pulled something. You might not realize it, but someday you'll be old too. Enjoy your youth while you can, but develop your skills, because your speed won't last forever. Oh, what do you care? You're not even listening anyway, are you? Later.
Your sub-weapons are made by combining two junk items which you can find in dungeons or even just in town areas and shops, which prompts you to explore more of the game. After inventing these weapons, you can still upgrade their range, firing rate, and damage output by dumping money into them. It's a massive money sink to fully upgrade something, so it's best to just do it to a weapon that you're confident you're going to be sticking with. A lot of things in this game are incredibly expensive, including the armor, health, and buster upgrades that you can get at junk shops, as well as the novelty items for the Flutter from the regular store. It's clear the intent was that you'd grind content to farm for these things, as inflation has done magic to the pricing of this game. I can see why the bonds are constantly on the verge of bankruptcy with these prices in this world. The typical structure of going to the islands is that you arrive, there's a problem with a pirate group, you fight the pirates, unlock the dungeon, do the main dungeon, fight pirates in the middle of this dungeon, then fight the real boss and get your special key to bring back to Roll's grandpa. Thinking back on it, the original Mega Man Legends had a similar structure of going somewhere, finding the bonds there, dealing with them, going to the dungeon, clearing it, and then repeating that a lot of the time. But I think that it was hiding it better by having it all play out on one big map rather than segregating it over special smaller ones. Directly separating it makes it feel episodic in structure, revealing how the formula keeps repeating itself. To add to this, the first game felt a lot more vibrant and varied because everything was mixed together into this one big game world that you were in, while the second tries to invoke environmental variety by splitting the theming into more separate areas isolated from each other. Having a colorful shopping mall, a scenic oceanside area, and an industrial complex, and a forest all right next to each other makes for a more colorful and vibrant world rather than having them all split between the snowing island, the desert island, and the sky island. Each area individually feels a bit drab and without character when compared to Legends 1 and especially Tron Bonne. I understand how it got this way, as it makes the individual areas more unique when put next to each other, but in a void, they're all kind of lacking visually. Though that's not the only way that things are spiced up between areas. The main dungeons are themed a lot more as well, like the jungle dungeon with the paralysis floors, the lava dungeon with the lava floors and fire-themed enemies, the underwater dungeon where the game runs at half speed and involves a lot of platforming and lasts half an hour. The final dungeon that's somehow even more of a slog than this. I can deal with paralysis floors, I can deal with lava floors, I can deal with underwater dungeons, at least in most games, but Mega Man Legends 2 does some things that I just cannot agree with. In the lava dungeon, there's a section where there's regular enemies that are incredibly tanky, fire homing missiles that are annoying to deal with, and the area is surrounded by lava tiles that the missiles will very likely push you into. What makes all of this worse is that with a fully damage upgraded sub-weapon, these enemies still take forever to take down, and running past them is troublesome since, well, they're firing homing missiles. To put into perspective how tanky they are, here's the same sub-weapon fired at two of the game's bosses from the same dungeon.
Everyone ready? Keep going. You've almost got it.
This is not a point of difficulty. This is just the game being annoying and cumbersome for no reason, and I have a hard time excusing this as either an obstacle to overcome or a well-balanced enemy. But it gets worse. I wasn't kidding when I said that the underwater dungeon plays at half speed. The The dungeon involves picking up blocks and throwing them in spots that let you jump over them for platforming sections. It involves water elevation switches that you have to activate and turn off, but most of it is going to be played underwater, and yeah, there's underwater combat. Besides this, if you get hit while you're underwater, you have to watch your entire hit animation until you hit the floor before you're allowed to move again, so you're just stuck there for seconds at a time, over nothing. The area took me about half an hour or so to complete, and when it was done, I thought my emulator was messing up and running the game overclocked because the regular game speed felt too fast and wrong. It wasn't, that was the actual game speed it's supposed to be. I'd just been stuck playing the game at a super slow speed for so long that it made the normal speed feel bad, and that's messed up. All of this was made worse when I realized that there were walls that you could drill down with the drill arm in this dungeon, and that's a sub-weapon. You can only have one sub-weapon with you at any time, so you have to choose between one that lets you clear content more easily, or the one that lets you get bonus content. Otherwise, you're going to have to run the dungeon a second time without the bosses being there. Something as constantly needed as the drill arm should not be an optional sub-weapon in my opinion. This isn't helped by there already being a second sub-weapon that you have to have with you at all times, which is basically just the ability to pick up things and throw them, which for most of the game you don't really need. Come to think of it, switching out hands, one of them being focused around throwing enemies, Buster, blue color theme, a car being driven around by a mechanic ready to upgrade you. Capcom really was on the nose with who they based the design for Nero on, huh? Wait, yeah.
That's what I expected from you.
For these reasons alone, the ice dungeon with slippery floors feels like a relief from the rest of the dungeon designs, and you know things are bad when the slippery floor gimmick dungeon is a moment of calm away from the things that you never want to deal with again. One of my least favorite moments in the game was the boss fight against the train, where during the final segment of it, the targeting system goes for obstacles that you have to shoot out of the way. This by itself is fine, targeting is helping you not take damage, cool. What isn't fine is that the targeting will not target the part of the train that takes actual damage. You have to stop targeting to hit the part of the train that removes health, even though one of the parts that it centers on is part of that same train, but you can only target it to shoot down a special beam that it fires at you. Not actually, damage the boss itself, which would let you clear the fight, that would make sense. Targeting in general has some issues that I don't remember from the first game in general, and it's not been that long since I played it. Whenever you let go of the targeting button and press it again, it recenters on a new enemy. It's a simple enough way to switch between targets on the fly, and it works great at that. But at the same time, if you take damage, it breaks the targeting that you had going, which in turn makes it focus on the next enemy in line instead of going back to the enemy that you had targeted. Which can make it easy to get overwhelmed by enemies because the camera moves along with the newly targeted enemy if you're not aware of this. I don't understand this as a feature, and I wonder if the addition was an oversight, because you very rarely want to spread damage over multiple enemies in a group when you can take them out one by one, and having your camera spin around to face something else isn't going to make combat flow any better. All it does is teach you to not bother targeting unless you really have to. This is counterbalanced by the existence of dual analog controls for a game released in the year 2000 on the PlayStation 1, which honestly is pretty impressive. It actually puts it ahead of Kingdom Hearts on the PlayStation 2, by default. But a lot of the time, keeping track of things with targeting is still more optimal as the game kinda mechanically is clunky in ways. At least locking onto enemies no longer turns Mega Man's feet to cement, so you're now allowed to lock onto enemies and move freely while shooting. Though moving away from them still disables your ability to shoot at enemies, but that's fair. A lot of things in this game just don't make any sense to me at all, like when Mega Man walks into Roll taking a bath and then does this.
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
Or the existence of Resident Evil 43. Or that time Mega Man finds cocaine at an airport.
you're too late. We won! Bonne is on his way back to the surface with the key. What? Why is your face red? Why is everyone looking at me that way?
Miss Tron, your clothes have been kind of ripped up.
Actually, your clothes are, gone. What? You dummies! Why didn't you tell me before? Retreat! Roger!
Yeah, this game is kinda tonally weird. Though I guess after the ending of Legends, this was to be expected. The tone is kind of an issue in Mega Man Legends 2 in general. It goes really hard on the lore and background of Mega Man and how super serious all of this is, and that doesn't fit the characters, how they act, or how the world kind of feels at all. It was something that felt off about the end of Mega Man Legends 1 when it got there, but now that we have a game focusing on it a lot more, it kinda makes the tone feel washed out in general, which goes great with the more toned down environments and lack of focus in terms of antagonists. If the original game was an early morning 90s anime, then The Misadventures of Tron Bonne would be the special made to celebrate the success included as a bonus on the VHS release. While Mega Man Legends 2 is that edgy OVA that's more true to the original manga's vision while disregarding tone or pacing, but it's got those stellar animations. While the Bonnes were the main antagonists for most of the first game, Mega Man Legends 2 sees Mega Man face a larger cast of enemy pirates. What it ends up coming down to is that with a much larger group of pirates, Claymore, Bola, Glide, Teasel, and Tron Bonne, only the Bonnes really get any screen time and the rest kinda just exist. Bola and Claymore are alright characters with good designs by themselves, but they don't really add anything to the game's story or setting at all, nor do they get fleshed out outside of a few lines they have in the small amount of appearances they get. The same goes with Clyde, who kind of just exists because he was in Tron Bonne's game, which kind of makes it more okay because he doesn't need the exposure as badly as he's a recurring character now. The big problem with the expanded cast is that they eat up each other's screen time, and only 2 of them are important to the overall plot. Having those characters share their screen time with others diminishes their presence. The Bonnes just don't feel as present as they used to be, which is a shame because they're still as much of a delight as they were in the first game, and in my eyes, they're the true stars of the Legends series. Especially now in the face of the game wanting to have the depressing backstory and lore be the larger focus. Though, knowing what Teasel's voice actor did in real life, I guess that's overall consistent with having a depressing backstory. A lot of these problems that I have with the game are especially a shame because the dungeon style of Legends 1 is preserved in the optional side dungeons, and while these feel unimportant and minor in how they're treated, I found them to be more fun to go through than the main game's dungeons and content. The core gameplay received such a major upgrade that I don't think it really needed gimmicks to spice it up the way the designers seem to believe. Most of the enemies are genuinely fun to face, and moving from room to room, uncovering items and going deeper into dungeons is a joy when you're not dealing with ice floors, lava pits, underwater traversal, or gravity switches. What I'm trying to get at is that as much as the core gameplay itself has received massive improvements, the content itself isn't matching it. If I could get the original Mega Man Legends with the controls of Legends 2, that would be my dream game in this franchise, but as it is, my favorite entry is The Misadventures of Tron Bonne, with the original as a distant second and this game as a far removed third. Since Tron Bonne came out second, maybe that rule of second entries being the strongest with Capcom still holds true here. As much as it pains me to say, and as sure I am to have people get mad at me over this one, I cannot recommend Mega Man Legends 2 the way that I did the previous 2 games. While I do think the gameplay has improved dramatically, neither the game content or the story really moved in a positive direction for me. It's not a bad game by any standards, but if it hadn't been for me doing a review of it, I'd have very likely dropped it halfway through. I actually spent some time talking to people about this game to see if it wasn't just me going crazy here, since I know a lot of people really love Legends 2 especially, but so many of the things I brought up as problems, others have shared as one, even if they weren't deal breakers for them. I'm not putting my own opinion on a pedestal, I mean, I kind of am, this being put out as a video review and all, but you know, we just value different things from games, and that's fine. When it comes down to it, I wish I could have enjoyed this game the way that I did Legends and Tron Bonne, but the magic just was not there for me. The higher amount of variety could be something that draws you in, even if the execution of it isn't as good as what it's based on. If that's not a deal breaker to you, maybe give it a shot. It might balance out better for you. Anyway, this was AboveUp. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is kind of a scary one to put out because I know this is such a beloved title and I just didn't like it. And I'm not trying to come at it from a contrarian point of view at all. There are so many improvements and they kind of come at the cost of the things that I liked from the first game. And the story problems that I have aren't really helped by, the story not being resolved and ending on a cliffhanger. If there was a payoff at the end, then yeah, maybe I'd be more okay with it, but as it stands, no, not really. I was glad to be playing this during my break for E3 because I needed some extra time to think about my thoughts on this one and how to approach this. As always, this video has been brought to you by people supporting me on Patreon. If you don't hate my guts right now for having a different opinion than you, and you would like to support future videos and become one of the scrolling names that you see on the screen right now, head over to patreon.com/AboveUp and I will see ya.